The most ordinary mystery. Welcome to part 3 of the Thomistic Metaphysics series on this channel as we continue to deep dive into the St. Thomas Aquinas Metaphysics using Father Noah Clarke's book, The One and the Many. And for some reason, again, I don't have it beside me, it's in my bag. But we're going to be looking into the idea of change today. Look around the world for just a moment. We can notice a few things. One, change occurs constantly. A small child will grow into an adult. Iron will rust. Buildings will decay. If I leave something as simple as my coffee on this table for far too long, then eventually this cup will erode and it will be disgusting. So that being said, change is literally everywhere, and it's so current or common that we don't even stop to acknowledge it. We rarely ever look around us and say, that's different, unless it's a dramatic change. But the subtle changes of life, we just continue on without really acknowledging them. I mean, for example, my body changes, my hair grows, my skin eventually decays, I become old and wrinkly. These are current, common changes. And that makes change seem simple, but it's not. So stop and try to explain change. See what you can explain. And maybe even, let's do like an experiment, leave a comment below on what you would define change as, and then let's see if that is the same. Or if you don't want to leave a comment, just write it down or make a note, but try to describe change now. And then resume the video, and then let's go into what change is from a Thomistic metaphysics viewpoint. We're also going to look at a couple other philosophers. Explaining change within metaphysics is one of the deepest problems because it creates a paradox, the paradox of change, if you will. Think about what happens during change. Something becomes something that it is not. For example, a seed will become a tree, but the seed was not a tree before. So how did the tree appear? Did it come from nothing? We can even look at humans and understand that humans develop in the womb, but it was not a human before it developed. So what was it? Did it come from nothing? As I recently made a video on nothing from nothing, a little short I did, that's a problem within metaphysics. How do we explain nothing from nothing? Because something has to have a cause to exist. If the tree already existed within the seed, then nothing has changed. So that's two conclusions. Either the tree came from nothing, which sounds absurd, or the tree was already there, which makes change meaningless. And that's the paradox that ancient philosophers encountered. Now, how do we explain that with Thomistic metaphysics? So you have two philosophers, two ancient philosophers, and they have two extreme viewpoints, and we're going to look at those. You have Parmenides, who argues that change is impossible. He believes in a constant. If something changes, then something that was not must come into existence. But non-being cannot produce being. Therefore, change must be an illusion. Reality must be one eternal, unchanging being. And then you have the other philosopher's viewpoint, which was also on the other extreme, and that's Heraclitus. And then you have the Heraclitus flux. Everything is change. Everything is constant. You will never stand in the same river twice. He believed change was the most fundamental nature of reality. Everything flows and nothing stays the same. And we're going to look at this from both viewpoints. Both philosophers notice something very real. Reality does change, but things do remain themselves. So it's a both and, the one and the many. You grow and you change throughout your life, yet you are who you are. You will always remain the same being. I am Walker. I don't care if I'm 2 years old or 100 years old, I am still Walker. Now, the changes that occur throughout my life may change the makeup of who I am or what I am, but at the core of my being, my essence, I am still me. So how can both be true? To look at both of these, we must look at Aristotelian metaphysics. So Aristotle, the philosopher, had this viewpoint. Aristotle realized that debate between the two had overlooked something very important. Parmenides assumed that there was only two possibilities. while something either exists or it does not exist. And Aristotle, he realized there was a third possibility. Something can exist as a possibility. In other words, things have potentials. A seed is not a tree, but it can become a tree. A child is not an adult, but the adult is already possible within the child. It's all about the potentiality of what will happen to these beings as time goes on. These potentials are the potential changes that can occur to create something from something. Aristotle used the terms potentiality and actuality to coin the differences. Potentiality refers to what something can become, while actuality refers to what something already is. Actuality, I am Walker. I am already a human being with a core essence, and I identify at the very essence of that as me. The potentiality is who I am yet to become and what lies before me. And I may not even know fully what that is. I have goals, I have aspirations, but in reality, I will never know fully what the world or my circumstances around me may toss at me, what will change what I will become, but I'll still be me. So one could say this, if you want to look at it in a different way. An acorn is an acorn, but it has the potentiality to become an oak tree. Change is the actualization of potential. Something that can become something else eventually does become that something else. A cold cup of water can become hot. A student can become educated. Iron can be rusted. In each case, the later state was already in existence within the earlier state as a potentiality. So therefore, change is not creation from nothing. It is instead the unfolding of the potentiality within that something. Or it's the potentiality coming out of the actuality. So you might be asking yourself, why does this matter? Well, for the everyday person, it may not. But for the ones who are curious about existential crisis and these various events to explain things, that's exactly it. It explains change and cause without contradiction. It takes the paradox out of the situation. So it's no longer Parmenides versus Heraclitus. It's, hey, you're both right. You guys are both right. It explains growth and development and motion and causation. And in Thomistic Metaphysics, it eventually dives into deeper discussions, such as, why do potentials become actuals at all? What causes change to occur? Can there be something that is pure actuality with no potential at all? Those questions lead us into deeper metaphysics, and that's something you're going to learn along this course, is that once we answer one question, it's probably going to bring about 5 more questions. It's the hydra of philosophy. That's what I call metaphysics. It is the hydra. So once you take one head off the beast, 3 more emerge, because now you have an answer. But that answer says, oh wow, there's more. Let's dive deeper. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So next time you see something change, stop, reflect, and understand what is happening. Try to take note of that change and the why. Try to identify the potentiality and the actuality. Reality is filled with possibilities waiting to become actuals. In the next episode, we are going to explore this idea even more deeply by examining the distinctions between act and potency in greater detail. Because once you understand that distinction between act and potency, you will begin to see the entire structure of change itself. Until then, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and watch out for more of these metaphysics videos, because as I'm uploading this, I will be uploading 1 per week. And I don't really know how many of these I'm going to upload. I don't have a plan. I'm just going to go through the entire series as I can. So there might be 14, there might be 100. I really have no clue. But for this one, this is the 3rd video in the series. Thanks for being dedicated and watching.